Hey, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Prepper Talk Radio. The winds of change, they be a-blowing. And tonight, you'll notice that we are only two as opposed to three. We lost our brother. He turned off his GPS and his calendar because he had another family event. So, as you know, family is one of the most important things to us. And we love Shane. We miss Shane. But Paris and I are here tonight to talk to you about preparedness, about why we prep, what we're prepping for, and particularly how to simplify things and take care of things at a moment's notice. Because guess what? Our brothers and sisters down in Florida are doing that right now. Hurricane Ian is going ballistic down there, all over Florida. If you watch the news, by the time this hits the podcast networks, it's a little too late. It's going to be done, hopefully everyone will be okay. But if you watch the news currently, it's category 4. It's hit landfall. It won't leave until sometime Thursday, and we're recording this on Wednesday. But having lived through those types of storms when I lived in Florida, I can relate, and I know the frustration and the anxiety that comes with them, because you never know what really is going to happen. You never know how your home's going to hold up. You never know. For me, I was in apartments. You never know what you're going to need to do. Do I need to evacuate? Do I need to stay here? I didn't have a car. I was on a bicycle. So I was like, my options are limited. And one of the worst storm that we actually faced, almost every hurricane that came through when I was there veered off and didn't make landfall. So we got winds, but there was one storm that hit that lowered to a tropical storm, and just blasted us for 3 straight days. Dang. It was the darkest like it had ever been. Like, I probably have an idea for what it's like to live in Alaska because of those 3 days. I didn't see the sun.
Wow.
It was dark, but not like midnight dark.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little tiny bit of light coming through
the
all
clouds.
Day long. And at nighttime, it was black.
Wow.
It was so dark. And at the end of the 3 days, we got a text on our little pagers, because back then we had pagers, and it said, all right, you're all free to go and get back to work. Thanks for staying in for the last 3 days. And I'm like, what? And I called, I was a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I called my zone leader, who's responsible to make sure we're safe and secure and everything. I'd been calling him every night, giving him reports on our work, because we were out knocking doors, talking to people. And I was like, what's this? What's this? You can go back outside now thing? And he's like, oh yeah, because we're supposed to be locked in. I'm like, have you been locked in the last 3 days? Yeah, the whole zone has. I'm like, how come this is the first I'm hearing of this?
Wow.
Wait, what? You didn't get the first text? I'm like, no. And if I did, my missionary companion saw it and didn't do anything about it.
That's
so I
crazy.
asked him, he's like, no, I haven't had. You always have the pager. I'm like, well, there it is. We didn't get that text. Mm-hmm. So we bicycled our way through 3 days of nonstop rain, darkness, crazy winds, and we went through probably 4 garbage bags, ponchos that we just make on the fly, easily. I mean, just you'd come in for lunch, change your clothes because everything's soaking wet, rinse everything off, hang it up, let it dry overnight, and wear it the next day in the afternoon. You just rotate through your clothes. But it was insane, and I can only imagine knowing that you have to lock the doors, board things up, or open all the windows. Like,
you never had to do that?
Thankfully, no.
Oh, wow.
Because everything ended up veering. But I mean, Florida is no stranger to hurricanes. Ian, it's category 4 now, but I mean, Florida, oh my gosh, Florida has all the worst news. Like, right, Florida man does whatever. Florida man, they had the crazy news about the zombie guy that was eating other people. Remember that story?
No.
Oh, so this guy got on some weird zombie-like medication and was trying to.
Oh, yeah. It was like fentanyl or something really bad.
Yeah.
Or some other weird drug like that. It just didn't. Was it a medication, or I thought it was a drug? Like it was a
drug.
and he
Like it
was
was an
running.
actual like
Yeah, he was at the hospital and he was
illicit.
like bending backwards like he was possessed by a devil or something. And he was just like,
I don't remember that part. I just remember watching the video of him chasing somebody on the streets, and the report was that he was trying to eat them. I'm gonna eat you,
oh
and he
my
was just
gosh, dude.
crazy and twisted and bending, and it just, oh boy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Florida has had the worst hurricanes. Just nasty, nasty hurricanes. I mean, homes getting destroyed, roofs getting just ripped off houses,
Yeah.
windows smashing through. I mean, you never know what's going to be flying through the air. But like, just to give you an idea, Ian's hit land. It's going all over the place. But back in 2018, Hurricane Michael hit and this was just decimated a lot of Florida. There's been so many hurricanes, 1992 and Hurricane Andrew. Katrina was the costliest in Florida history, with a total U.S. damage from that storm of $50 billion.
Wow.
That was bad. Hurricane Andrew, 1992, 25
I
billion in
actually,
damages in the state.
I actually lived in Florida just after Hurricane Andrew. So I got there about
Really?
94 to 96. I was actually a missionary too, probably a different part of the state though.
Possibly.
Um, yeah, Fort Lauderdale's was my headquarters, but I was in
There
the
you go.
southern. I spoke Spanish, so I was in the southern part of that, Miami and things like that. So we had hurricane. I can't remember what it was, but we had a hurricane come through, and it ended up being a tropical storm. But we
Mhm.
boarded up. We went around helping people board up their houses, board up their windows. We actually boarded up the church, and we all went and slept at the church the night that it was supposed to hit land. And so
Dang.
it was crazy. I actually have a picture of me. I was doing this funny thing against the tree where I was like doing a flagpole thing against the tree.
Yeah.
I
Hanging
sent it to
sideways.
I sent it to my mom. I was like, I'm getting blown by the hurricane. And she's like, yeah, but your tie is going straight down. Like, what's that all about? I'm like, dang it. I forgot to accommodate for my tie. And so it was actually headed towards the ground, which is clearly obvious. There was no wind actually blowing me. Anyways, it was just a funny thing, but you know how we
She's
do when
like,
we're
my
young.
son is safe, but he's a knucklehead.
Exactly. But it was interesting to be able to go around and help people make sure that they had the water, that they made sure that they had,
Mhm.
one of the things that a lot of people in Florida that do is they just have extra plywood and extra boards so that when those hurricanes come through, that's part of their emergency preps. And so
Mhm.
that just speaks to the area that you live in. Make sure that you're prepared for whatever's going to happen or potential to happen in the area in which you live. So, for
Yeah.
example, I don't need to carry a bunch of plywood for my windows where I live, but in Florida, you better have some extra plywood. And, I don't, I don't remember if it was if it was an actual, somebody actually did it or somebody came up with this service afterwards, but somebody like had a stake you could put in the front yard and stake you could put in the backyard. And then like a huge strap you could throw over your house. And this wasn't something that happened at the time I lived there, but this is something I saw later after one of these other hurricanes. And I
Okay.
think that was to help the roof stay on, like to help the roof from getting blown off. They had these huge straps. They staked it into the front yard and then the backyard, and they put huge straps over the house to help keep
Interesting.
the roof from blowing off. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool way to prepare. Uh, there was another thing that I saw, and I don't think it was in Florida. It was in like another one of these other places where a lot more flooding happens. Like I know hurricanes, one of the big things is rain and wind, and then also flooding
Yep.
as the tide rises up. But this was just an area where there was just flooding, and this guy apparently had put a bunch of sandbags around his house in preparation, and everybody thought he was crazy. And they actually now created a product, and I don't know where it is, what it's called, but it's a product that you can actually put around your house like a border, like a barrier, and it's a blow up product now, and you could put it in there, I think, right? Or is that something that?
I think you fill it with water.
Oh, okay, yeah, and then that
Yeah.
hopes keeps that acts like a barrier, like a
Yep.
wall to keep the flooding out. And that guy was able to, then his house was destroyed, and his neighbors thought he was crazy, but he was like laughing all the way to the bank, so to speak, as he was safe and they weren't. So
Sure.
there's
He's
just things
super
like that,
grateful. Yeah.
just things like that to make sure that you have in your area to be prepared wherever you are.
That's true. There's so many things that just people drive me nuts because and I shared this on social media earlier today. It's like there's really three types of people. There's the people who prepare,
Mm-hmm.
There's the people who think I would, but it's just too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the people who think, well, someone else will come take care of me. And it's funny because like the people in the middle that are like, I would, but it's too hard. They're like, I should, but I'm not going to do it because it's just too much work. It's too hard. But then they're like, oh crap, no one's going to come save me. I'm just screwed and I'll just die and give up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a weird mindset. But then the ones that are like, it's someone will save me. They remind me of that cartoon on the meme, basically the dog sitting in an office break room, it looks like, and there's fire all around him, that drawing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, it's fine.
Yeah,
Drinking his
nothing to see.
coffee. And it's like, they're like, someone else will put out the fire. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not my job. Stay in your lane. Let the experts take care of that. And I'm like, guys, they can't get there to save you until
There's
after
not enough of them.
And even then, Katrina taught us that 3 weeks, in some cases, people didn't get help for 3 weeks. And the 3-day emergency supply kits, after Katrina, they started teaching, oh, that's not enough. You need 4 days, which is what I've been doing for years before then. But even now, most companies still are only selling 3-day kits.
Yep.
What's it been? 15 years since Katrina? How long ago was Katrina? Let me pull up my fact sheet here. Katrina was boom, boom, boom.
It was a Hurricane 5 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was $50 billion, but that was back
It was
in
2005.
2005. Yeah,
And that
that's
was a
the
week.
difference.
That was a week to. That was 7 to 8. It was 8 days apparently where that hurricane was just cranking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal.
Well, there's that ad that I was trying to avoid. But yeah, we have to take precautions. We have to take matters into our own hands. The people who live down there and the people who live like in Texas, anyone on the Gulf Coast, it's funny how robust their plans are.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, they're like, I keep this on hand, but then if I know storm's coming, I go get more.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're like, and if this happens, we go to this place. If we have to evacuate, we have 3 levels of evacuation plan, like evacuate in the neighborhood, evacuate in the city, and evacuate out of the city, and evacuate out of the state. Like they've got all these layers, and it's the whole family knows the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't question it. They just know, okay, here's what we do. My job is to grab the water and to board up the windows, right? And it's funny because I actually met a family that their business was to go around and actually sell metal track to go over the top and the bottom of windows.
Oh, so they could slide that right in, or
so you could slide the boards in. And then it had pins on the side that had padlocks, so you could padlock it in, and the boards would stay.
nice.
And it was brilliant. And they made it because of Florida, because of Hurricane Andrew. They're like, there's got to be a better way. Like anything can get ripped off, and so they sell you the boards, and they sell you the track, and they
Mm-hmm.
install the track for you, so it's there, and then they teach you how to do it, and then you go store the boards wherever you want to store it, like your garage or your shed or somewhere dry.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 3/4 to an inch thick plywood. It's not just, you can't just go and grab like 1/4 inch plywood and think you're
whatever.
okay. I've had the luck of having a hurricane simulator when I owned PrepperCon, and we were in there at 106 to 130 miles per hour winds.
Wow.
That's a lot of wind.
Mm-hmm.
I think the record that we had was 146 miles per hour. And that was,
Is that somebody could sustain that, or they could be in it in a simulator?
They were in the simulator with those winds.
Oh, wow.
And they lasted about 10 seconds with that. And then they're like, bring it down, bring it down. That's a lot of wind.
Yeah.
That's so much wind.
That's enough to carry someone off, maybe even.
Right.
It's getting there.
And there's only 5 categories of a hurricane that I understand, right? A hurricane category 4 is what these guys withstood. So 3 is what we would go up to for everybody. and that, like, I think it stops like right at 130 miles an hour. Category 4, let me see. Oh, here we go. Category 4, whoops, is sustained winds of 130 to 156 miles per hour.
That's 4.
And category 5 is 157 miles per hour and higher.
Wow.
That's the insane thing about it. Like, right now, Ian's a category 4, so 130 to 156 miles an hour. And you got to remember, there's debris flying everywhere. There's rain hitting you, right? And rain at high speed doesn't feel good. Debris never feels good. Like when we were testing out the simulator, we were in southern Utah in St. George, and we had a container company that was building the container to put everything in, and essentially it was a turbo prop boat, engine and prop. So like what you'd ride in the Everglades airboats, and it blew so dang hard. And in the tube, when we put it in the tube for the first time, bolted it down, we're in there, and we didn't
Did you
think
build
about
it?
No, we had a guy actually from Florida build it for us.
Oh, nice.
What's crazy is the whole thing, like once it was in and we were testing it down there, we didn't think about the fact that there's gravel everywhere, and it started sucking in dust and sand, and you're just getting pelted. So we're like, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. And we knew, we're like, okay, wherever we do this, it has to be a clean area. And so before we'd run it, we had to get out there with our little dust blowers and clean everything out in front of it, because it's going to suck that in.
Yeah, to be able to blow it back out, you got to suck it in.
Yeah, it's got to have a source. And so like we learned that like this thing, this thing's pretty powerful. Trying to live in those situations where that's what's actually going on, that's intense.
Yeah. I saw some people in the videos that were like literally swimming inside their house. And there's a couple people that were holding flags out in the wind, just out in the front yard as the wind just blew. You could see the trees kind of just, tilting, and they were pushing into the wind and holding an American flag. And some people were having their Joe Biden, I think it was the F Joe Biden flag or something like that. Anyways,
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. That was the one. Sorry. It was the Let's Go, Brandon flag. And so it was super funny to see these guys out there just saying, you know what, doesn't matter what's coming. We're going to sit out here and we're going to do this. So there's some fun people out there that when they get into these situations, they recognize that there's, what can you do? When you got a category 4 coming at you and you're right in the middle of it, right in its pathway. And from what I understand, Fort Myers is kind of where it touched down, right on the Gulf side of the Panhandle. And then it's going to go across. It's going to go across.
It's like the seatbelt shoulder strap going right up across the state.
Yeah. And then it's going to go across out back into the Pacific. And then it's going to go up like right into Georgia and stuff like that. If it continues to have some windfall.
Well, and it's circling counterclockwise, right? And so it's creating like this huge wall of wind, whoosh, and rain, whoosh. So it's like sucking from the ocean, throwing back on land, sucking from the ocean, throwing back on land. And so it's, even if it's not landfall anymore, it's still sucking everything in and throwing it right back on land.
Yeah, all that water. And one of the things I saw too is I was reading a little bit about some of the things that were happening in the days ahead of it. And I personally think Ron DeSantis is fantastic, and there's obviously some people that don't like him for some reason. But anyways, he was talking about all the preparations they were doing ahead of time in helping the counties and the cities get ready, making sure they had all the resources and everything that they needed to make sure that they had what they needed. But then I saw other articles about how, again, water flying off the shelves at local grocery stores, food flying off the shelves at grocery stores. And I thought to myself, if you live in Florida and you know that there's this type of thing that can happen, shouldn't you have significant water storage? Shouldn't you already have had those things? And I know that kind of speaks to the fact that you said we have this on hand, but we can always go get more. But man, when you live in a hurricane place and it's hurricane season, make sure you have what you need. Be prepared. You know what's going to happen. Have the water. Have the if your house gets flooded, what can you do? Well, sandbags. You can make sure you're in a higher, make sure that you have a room in the, maybe the higher steps, levels of the house that's available to you. Make sure that you know that you can be safe somewhere in the house. If it's a 1-story, do your best to be prepared. But I just think that a lot of people just still, even though they're in these areas that are prone to these things, they still just think like, well, it'll happen to somebody else, or maybe it'll happen next year. It's like, no, it's going to happen. And right now there's a lot of people moving to Texas and moving to Florida. And so these are people from other states that have no idea that this type of stuff happens. And so I'm hopefully we're speaking to those people right now too, that are saying, okay, well, now that you're in it, you know what you should have done for the next time, but next time, make sure, because it's going to happen. Make sure you have your water, generator, et cetera, et cetera.
So I saw a news report that said that there's more than 2 million more people in Florida right now than there were last hurricane season that have moved there. That's a huge change in population. So evacuation routes are going to be more crowded. Resources are going to be spread thinner. Those are the problems that people are going to face in any type of disaster, right? You're going to have resources spread thin. And during the actual event, like a hurricane, who's going to be able to come help you? Everyone else is going to need help too, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to be able to come help you? Can you get an EMT to your house in the middle of a hurricane to help you because so-and-so fell off a ladder? Not likely.
Yeah.
Right. And so what are your solutions for that? You talked about water, right? Have the water, have the first aid, have the food, have them high off the ground in a dry place if you're likely to have water and flooding. Like where we live, the chances for flooding is very, very, very low. Right? If we have flooding, it's flash flooding. And it just all of a sudden there's a wall of water that comes through and then it goes away. We're too high up for it to settle. Where I live, specifically on a hill. But I could get snowed in very easily and not be able to leave my house for days.
Yeah.
Right? I could be, if we go without power, or if the supply chain's completely cut off and there's no way to refill my gas tanks in my cars and I'm stuck up here, how long could we be up here?
Yeah.
And those are the things you need to plan for. Depending on where you live, resources might run out. Resources for manpower may be clogged and can't be used. You think about how many police you have or how many firemen you have per city. Like, what does your city have? And then how many people live there? Those are the factors you need to look into and think about. And that will help kind of get your mind to go, okay, I need to better prepare myself.
Yeah.
I need to take care of these things on myself. Right. And what's funny is there's laws. I can't remember what the name of the law is, but there's a law that talks about hoarding. There's a hoarding law that you can't keep food if there's a national emergency. That anything over, I think 3 days or 5 days is fair game for the government to come get. Right. But there's also price gouging laws that like you can't like jump prices to an astronomical rate on emergency essential stuff, food and water during or after a natural disaster, because they used to do that. I remember seeing.
But if you have it all ahead of time, then you don't need to worry about that because they're not going to limit what you're going to buy when you go to buy it because you already have it.
And with inflation already as bad as it is, I mean, I remember seeing a case of bottled water for $90 and people were spending the money for it.
Dang.
And those are the types of things that that's where those laws came from because people needed it. And it's hard because it's like, I just wish people would take time to be a little more courteous and kind and not be so opportunistic. We live in such a weird society where everyone wants to get ahead and hurt somebody else to get there, or they don't mind hurting someone else to get there.
Yeah.
And they take advantage of people. And it's like, if we just cared about each other more, those things wouldn't happen. We wouldn't need those laws. Right. And I believe we don't need those laws. We need better morals.
Right.
We need to care for our neighbor.
Yeah, the minute we start getting government in to control every little thing that we do, we're starting to give them more power than they really ought to have. We should be able to work some of this stuff out ourselves and just not have to worry about that. And it's, that's where being prepared would be a huge answer to that. If somebody's already ready, they already have everything they need, then these people wouldn't price gouge because there wouldn't be a demand for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm already ready. I don't need to buy your water bottles because I'm already ready. I'm already prepared. I don't need to go spend $90 on a case of water bottles when I already have, 10 or
It's so
15 in my
true.
house.
It's so true. I mean, when I was a kid, my cousins live in Tucson, Arizona, and they have during monsoon season. Monsoon season is when all the rain basically hits for the whole state. And it's just basically it's like a 4 week season of just rain, off and on
Mm-hmm.
storms, lots of flash flooding. So you have all these washes where the water will flow through. But they lived between two washes where the rain were so bad they couldn't get anyone in or out except for by helicopter.
Wow.
And it took them a couple of weeks to open the roads again. A couple of weeks.
Wow.
And they're like, it sucked because we ran out of milk. I'm like, did you run out of water? No, we had water. I'm like, did you run out of anything else? They're like, no, we just couldn't have cereal because we ran out of milk. Like, that's what my cousins, that's everything else was life is normal.
Yeah, so now we know he needs to get some more powdered milk so we can just
Right.
make some milk.
And these are the 12-year-old kids, right? I was 12 at the same time. And I went out to visit them just a few weeks after those opened back up again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we ate cereal for breakfast every day. They're like, oh my gosh, I love cereal. I'm so glad we can have cereal every day again.
That's cool.
But it was funny because that's what they remember.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have milk for cereal every day. I'm like, yeah, I've got enough powdered milk to cover us for about 5 months that way. But yeah, during anything, you will run out of certain things first. The things you
Mm-hmm.
love, you'll probably run out of first if you don't stock up more on them. So think about that. Like, what do you eat on a daily? What do you drink on a daily? Like, get more of that. That's
Yeah,
where you start. And
exactly.
it's funny because like kids will have a different perspective than the adults. The adults are probably stressed, like, man, we got to get services back connected. How are we going to get out of here? And
Mm-hmm.
the kids are just like, we can't go anywhere. Okay. Well, this sucks. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And they find something to do.
Yeah.
They didn't
Or
have
you
power for the first few days, and so they couldn't play video games, couldn't do anything. Right? They were reading books, playing in the backyard on the trampoline, where it's just and cleaning up around the yard because there's so much water moved so much stuff around them.
and that's
So
where
it's
it's
like,
important. I think that's where it's important to have board games and other things like that, non-electronical
mm-hmm,
games and entertain forms of entertainment, so that you can take care
yep,
of that need.
a good library, coloring books, crayons, not just like markers. Those could dry out, right? Crayons
Mm-hmm.
don't dry out. They can run out when you rub them out all over everything, but like get a ton of crayons, go to the dollar store, stock up,
Yeah.
get a lot of board games. Depending on what age your kids are, get that age and the next year up, right?
Yep.
And have those puzzles. Like my kids love puzzles. We've got a ton of puzzles. So that's what we'll be doing when the power goes out. Puzzles,
Nice.
coloring, reading. They're not really into the board games except for like Hungry Hippos and those are loud and obnoxious. But you know what? If that's the only loud and obnoxious sound, that'll be fine.
Right.
Right. So find what works for your family. Think about the different resources that you have now and think about how those will be impacted during and after a natural disaster.
Yeah.
That's
I
part
think
of why we prep.
one of the funny things I saw too was not necessarily funny actually, but interesting was that I saw a video of somebody saying that they saw a shark. The water had risen so high in Florida that they saw a shark swimming down their road. So like if there's sharks swimming down your street, there's not going to be EMTs, there's not going to be firefighters, there's not going to be these other things coming. Another video I saw, and this wasn't Florida, this was another video that I think it was somewhere in the islands. I just watched this river, this flooding, and I think it was part of some other storm, maybe the same storm, I don't know, but it was that like the bridge completely washed out. And so you can't, if there's no bridge, you can't get in to help anybody until it's safe to do so, because none of the emergency responders or the first responders are going to go into an area that's going to cause even more damage or more problems or more emergencies to try to get to you. So if you're in one of those areas where you have that kind of an environment, or you're living in a little different, and maybe you're living across a bridge, or maybe you're living on an island or somewhere that's a little bit more remote, make sure you have what you need, and so that you can last until they get there, especially if you're remote, because you know that they're going to go to the cities first, and
Yep.
then they're going to go from there. And so they're going to go to the more densely populated areas first, and then out from there. So if you're on the outskirts, you're definitely going to want to have a lot of resources.
So here's a cool story. So do you remember during Hurricane Katrina, the Coast Guard was trying to save people. They helped save like 34,000 people. But they're given all the credit for that. But half of that was the airboats and the local and the private boats from people in the neighboring cities and states that came in to help. You remember that?
Wow. That's
There were
awesome.
people just there. They had their trucks and trailers and their boats, and they're just flying down there to help rescue people. And there's one story that I've always thought was so cool. This guy Kenny Bellow, and I'm probably butchering his name. Um, he 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 did an interview, and he's famous for it because of his one boat saved, I think they say, the 400 people. But basically, his story is this: he was looking for an escape route, and he was like, "I got to get out of here. I got to get to a safe space. I got to take, because it's just going to get worse here." And he was going to
Mhm.
evacuate and leave on his little boat. And he looked and he heard noise, and these kids were yelling for help. And he looked over and he saw these kids that needed help. And that's what started this journey of him going and rescuing and rescuing and rescuing and rescuing and just helping people after people after people. Um, he's credited for over 400 people on his 24-foot long motorboat.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Like,
Yeah.
you will see some of the worst in people during these times, but you also see some of the best of people in these times.
Yeah.
Like, these are the times I prep for so that I can help. I can be of service to my neighbors,
Mhm.
right? And
Not
to
so
my
you could be a looter and take advantage.
right. And that's why I carry guns, so I can help be of service to my neighbors to get rid of the looters,
Yeah,
right?
good for that.
And that's pretty much everybody in my neighborhood packs, which is
Mm,
fantastic.
that's awesome.
So we could be like, "Hey, bad guy, 3 houses down. You go take care of him."
Yeah.
"Oh, I only have this." "Well, that'll work," you know?
Yeah, good luck trying to raid your neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's nuts because it's like there's so many good people that will come and help, right?
Mhm.
Natural disasters, you see the best in people. Yes, you will see the worst in people in any bad situation, but you'll also see the best in people. People will rise, and that I think it's an innate thing to help other people when you see someone who needs help. But I think it's been silenced because of social media. I think it's been silenced because of the way how busy the world is, like how busy we have to be just to keep up.
Yeah.
But when it's a disaster and everything like broken down, nothing else is working, it's like, well,
Mhm.
shoot, you got time now. There's no distractions. There's no one telling you not to. There's no, the little angel on the shoulders telling you to go help, and the little devil on the shoulders going, "Oh crap,
Right?
I got nothing." Right.
Mhm.
Um, which is the opposite of the Emperor's New Groove, where the angel's like, "I got nothing,"
Oh,
and
gee.
he's like, "He's got a
Yeah,
point,"
with
right?
Kronk. Yeah.
Yeah, with
Thanks.
Kronk.
Forget that guy.
It's, flip the other way. It's I think people are going to do amazing and extraordinary things in times of disaster. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
think we'll see some stories like that come out of Florida. And
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see those stories. And here's some people in our Facebook group. I think we have some people from Florida on there. Maybe we can have them talk. Hopefully they can share with us things that they did to prepare, things that they did to take precautions and be ready and in advance, and then what they're doing to help clean up, because the cleanup is another big thing. Like what
Absolutely.
tools, resources do you have to clean up after a natural disaster like this? And being able to get out and, do you have chainsaws? Do you have shovels? Do you have rakes? What do you have to help? And just getting
Shovels,
out there.
wheelbarrows, rakes, those are fantastic to have. Every home
Yeah.
should have them, right?
Yep.
Chainsaws, shoot, those are fantastic to have.
Yep.
There's so many tools. And do you have solar power? Like, power's going to go out in a lot of areas here. All the power in Florida is in above ground power lines. Things are going to get blown over. Things are going to get
Yeah.
disconnected. So there will be time where you can't get things. So do you have a solar array that might be able to be set up and help charge your neighbors' phones and get people reconnected again? There's so many different things that we can do to help out in our local areas to be better prepared. And this is our plug. Go, if you haven't done this, go check into CERT. You can go to ready.gov and look up CERT, CERT, find your local neighborhood CERT, get certified, get involved, because you're going to be able to help. They provide some resources, but it's really a communication network. So when something happens, here's how we can help respond and help take care of people. And you'll get
Hmm.
some of the best training you can get on, emergency preparedness. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So guys, make sure you do that. I think that'll pretty much do it for this episode. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials. Make sure that you're jumping into our Facebook group. Go to Prepper Talk Radio on Facebook. You'll see the link to our group there. But also make sure that you join our email list, because we do send out updates, notifications. We also do a weekly live in our private group, so you can get a lot of coaching and help with us. And we just want to help grow the community, grow better prepared people, because self-reliant people change the world.
Mm-hmm.
Self-reliant people are the ones who changed our country and made America America. And you know what? They're going to be the ones that save it. So stay tuned, stick with us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you follow us. And don't forget to hit up our YouTube. Help us get over 1,000, because we're doing a giveaway of a Jase Medical case. All of your emergency antibiotics that you need for you individually, worth $250. We're going to be giving that away once we break 1,000 on our Facebook or on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.